Today is the fifth Sunday of the year. Our gospel text is taken from Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 through 17. We're still at the very beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. Last week we heard the Beatitudes. This week Jesus is a little bit more forthright and direct, speaking to the disciples and to us, saying, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light to the world." This is not so much a commandment to do something. It's a reminder that we are something already. It's a call for us to be who and what we are, light to the world, salt of the earth. In other words, if you are what you have been made to be, this is what will happen. This is where you will go. This is what you will do. It's a call to be. This truth, I think, has been somewhat obfuscated over the last 55, 60 years by cultural and social developments. We need to free it, recover it, redeem it, so that we can answer the invitation and the opportunity and the challenge that Jesus gives. Let's reflect for a moment on the obfuscations that emerge from our culture. In 1968, that was a tumultuous year, symptomatic of the times. The Prague Spring occurred, which provoked the Soviet Union to invade Czechoslovakia. Assassinations occurred. Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy. The anti-Vietnam War protests intensified. There were upheavals on university campuses throughout the world. These high-profile events were channeled into our dining rooms and lounge rooms and our lives nightly. They're very obvious, very much there for us. We couldn't escape them. What was also very significant, but not so obvious, was the advent of two songs in 1968. On Broadway at the beginning of 1968, there was a show called The Golden Rainbow, featuring a song called I've Gotta Be Me. Sammy Davis Jr. made it very popular. The year ended with I Did It My Way, made very popular by Frank Sinatra. On the face of it, those songs seem to be saying the sort of thing that Jesus is saying. In other words, be what you are, be who you are. In fact, I don't think they are saying the same as what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying you are made in the image and likeness of God. Our tradition reminds us that we're baptized into Christ. We are one with him. We are instruments of God's love in the world, called to be who and what we are, servants of the mystery. And if we are who and what we are, excuse the clumsiness of that expression, but it's difficult to say otherwise. If I'm faithful to who and what I am, to who I am, I will bear witness to the mystery of God's love. We can become a little bit sidetracked by doing things, by strategies and tactics, by New Age sayings and professions of who and what anyone can be, anytime. It's a very precious tradition that we have, to be who and what we are. We find Jesus today saying that to the disciples. Be who you are. Be the light of the world. That's what you are. Be the salt of the earth. That's what you are. Jesus is informed by the prophet Isaiah and the great tradition of the people of God. Isaiah 42 reminds the people of God's intentions for Israel, which Jesus is continuing. Listen to the few words of Isaiah. I am the Lord. I have given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeons, from the prison those who sit in darkness. Our very being, our very identity is found in fulfilling these words of God by God's power, by the grace of God. Jesus is the fulfillment of this promise, and in him we are enabled to fulfill God's intentions. One scripture scholar, speaking of Isaiah's words to the people of Israel, applying also to Jesus' words to disciples, you and me, says, we are to be a living covenant, a people who through demonstration of our covenant faithfulness will draw all peoples and nations into a bonded relationship with their only God and Father. Presence is everything. How faithful we are to who we are and what we are will constitute our presence in the world. The way of being present in the world is much more important than what we say to the world. Presence even gives the efficacy to action. When we are faithful to our being a living covenant, what we do will bear testimony to that. Our experience of being loved into freedom by God, being disciples of Jesus, will enable us to be in the world so that Jesus can do what they need to do for the world, to love us all into freedom. Even the most insignificant moment, if we are present as who and what we are, and not some fictional identity, even the most insignificant moment can bear traces of God, hints of God's presence in the world, God who loved the world so much that he gave his only Son. Even our very silence can speak of God's love, God's goodness, God's intentions for the world.